part of a madrasa life is no doubt learning about Islamic life, Islamic disciplines, Islamic sciences, to a level where one just has to concede, I don't know anything. The deeper one goes, the more profound the acknowledgement and realization, I don't know anything. Such is the vastness and expanse of this knowledge. As far as the opportunity of living amongst the mashayikh, furthermore, I found myself blessed with the opportunity to remain very close to my shaykh, learn about his own shaykh, the whole chain that goes back of the madrasa, and to learn more about Allah and my role on the face of this earth as a human. The madrasa life imbues within a person a sense of what is referred to in Arabic text as adab. Genteelness, humanity, morality. These characteristics, which either are passed on by companionship or learned through text. The opportunity to learn within the Shama'il of Tirmidhi, where the prophetic qualities and attributes from the hair of the Prophet to how he spoke with people, to how he walked, to what was his food and diet like, what was his thinking pattern in different situations. These are all the gifts that a madrasa life provides. At one level, it's a very envious position. A position to say, I've been there, done it, bought the t-shirt. But it's once when you graduate, and there are lots of graduates of a madrasa sitting here today, they may well hold their hand up and say, I miss it. I really, really miss it. Because though that companionship, that depth of knowledge in the circle of friends and the circle of tutors that was there before, taken on that journey from dependent learning to independent learning, is something that the clock cannot turn back. The professor, he mentioned the term of spiritually charging, if I may quote him. It is. But if I may refer to the work of an author who wrote Al-Munqidh min ad-Dalal, Savior from Deviance, who was on this journey trying to discover what the science of tasawwuf, which is labeled today as Sufism or mysticism, and by some as Gnosis, with a G at the beginning. He concludes by saying, you have to experience it. Dhawq. You have to taste it, you have to experience it. Like I said at the beginning, how would you explain to someone your experiences of learning how to drive, falling off a bike, learning how to swim, going to your first football match or whatever, or your days at Oxford, Cambridge, or wherever? But in madrasa life, this is a memory that is etched and follows you, because a lot of madrasa students have a close linkage with their madrasa as well, will happily revisit their tutors, because there is a connection there. There is an indebtedness there. And in this scenario, may I quote the words of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, "Man ja'ahu al-maut wa huwa yatlubu al-ilm ليحيي به الإسلام فبينه وبين النبيين درجة واحدة في الجنة رواه المشكات." That whoever is overwhelmed by death whilst he is seeking knowledge, so that he may resurrect by acquiring that knowledge Islam, then between him and between the prophets there is one rank in paradise. Madrasa life, on the one hand, is a very pleasant life. Dr. Akram Nadwi, I was searching through the pages and I was trying to locate the social hours the students spend. He goes through the morning where you have lessons on Al-Hujjatullah Al-Baliga, about the proofs of Allah. The book in English translation is being sold outside. Not that they paid me to advertise the book. We have lessons around the Sahih of Bukhari. I was quite taken back by the intellectual discussions of the students. We have lessons around Arabic literature. And we have obviously the afternoon siesta, and then times for a walk or a private study or listening to a sheikh reciting some poetic verses or watching football with the other eye as well between the Nadwi students and the non-Nadwi students. The Nadwis, I think, won 3-1, I think, in the end. Oh, sorry, the non-Nadwis won 3-1. So the social hours are also, just as you go on a university campus, you will link up with students, you will go for a meal, you will try to find the halal restaurant or whatever. And student life, whilst in Britain might be captured by drinks or drugs or alcohol or whatever, I can assure you Madrasa life is not like that. It's a very pleasant experience, but like I say, you would have to taste it. Where else in the world would you get an opportunity to go through that minute detail of the life of the Prophet, which every Muslim tries to emulate? The realization within me of my role to be an active citizen, participating in wider society debate and dialogue, that I believe gave me a firm foundation to move on to the other phases of my study, eventually moving on to British institutes. I also had a professor from the University of Oxford as my supervisor. He was the late Professor Derek Latham, whom you may know of. And he had studied under Professor Beeston and all others. He was brilliant with his Arabic literature. On many occasions we would converse in Arabic. He invited me to his home once, I remember, because we never did anything in the class. And I remember taking some samosas with me as a gift. And he inquired, "What is this?" And I said, "Do you remember your lessons in maths?" He says, "Yes, I do." So, "Do you remember that thing called a triangle?" I said, "Yes." I said, "This is just an inflated version of it." And I was quite happy to learn of him. In fact, I remember he was an etymologist of the Oxford Dictionary as well, where the words came from in English dictionary. And I remember him asking me or ringing me up, what is the word gibna, what is it? And the word shilwar and qamis and kebab and samosa, what are all these words? Before they entered the Oxford Dictionary. So Dr. Akram Nadwi and I was quite overwhelmed by the context of the professor's talk, that absolutely offers an insight into the madrasa very much needed in this day and age. Just as if people were to think, well, what is it like to be in a monastery? What is it like to undergo training as an Anglican church priest? I was once invited to somewhere near Durham University, I forget the actual place name, where the members or the potential graduates who were going to serve in churches in this multicultural world that you were referring to, Professor, and they wanted to meet a Muslim. So they took me down. And I remember going up the A1, and I had to stop because it was Fajr time in the morning, and it was a cold, wintry day. And my reverend friend, Reverend Simon Besson, and he says, "What's the problem?" I said, "We need to stop." He says, "There are no loos around here." And I said, "Don't worry, I don't need a loo. I just need to pray." He says, "There aren't any mosques around here as well." I said, "It doesn't matter." He says, "Where are we going to go?" I said, "We're going to go to the B&Q car park. I've just seen a sign for the B&Q. He says, "Are you sure it's not open at the moment?" I said, "I don't need it to be open." And he says, "Okay, fair enough, let's go there." And he says, "Are you sure you want to do this? It's freezing outside." I said, I have to do this. And he says, can I join you? I said, it's freezing, remember? I said, no. I says, fair enough. You can watch me, you can join me. I have no problems with that. He says, what you going to pray on? I said, don't worry, I'll sort myself out. And says, open your boot. Open the boot, sorry. And I says, I had some cardboards. And I'm sure most of you will have gone through this. So I placed it on the B&Q. He says, I must take a picture of this. I says, why? Which website is it going to appear on? He says, don't worry, this is for my personal collection. I must see this. And he says, I've never seen this done in my life. I said, okay, fair enough. So I ran, it was a small Fajr prayer because it was cold. So we performed the Fajr prayer, then we went. And when we went there, and there's, if you can imagine a class full of non-Muslims basically, they were Christians, they were preparing, being trained to be a clergy in different settings. And my colleague, the Reverend, says, guess what I've seen today? He says, I've seen a Muslim pray in the early hours of the morning in a frightfully, bitterly cold morning, and I would never dream of getting out of bed at that time of the morning for doing this. And he says, wow. I says, whatever made you do that? Whatever prepared you? That takes conviction, that takes dedication. And I said, well, what makes you go to church on a Sunday and stand up in front of a crowd and deliver a sermon? He said, well, that's what I believe in. I said, this is what I believe in. And I sat there with this graduating prospective clergies who were going to serve this multicultural community, and I just started joking with them. And I said, look, my friend here told me to prepare a speech, and I did, but I ripped it up before I got here. But now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to joke with you. And I said, the first thing that I was taught in Madrasa Life, we are humans, and we need to fulfill humanity within us. And the process of a Madrasa Life, to take this human being to that stage, to learn about Allah, and automatically he will learn about his role as a human on the face of this earth. Despite the fact that we are different, and there was an acknowledgement that within what I was taught, we at very one level, we are brothers and sisters of the same human race, and our knowledge should take us to working together more closely on that. I would recommend the book Madrasha Life. I would recommend it more to you if you've studied in a madrasa, because you will enjoy some of the things. I mean, there are parts of it, I guess you need to know, for example, who was your supervisor. I remember one part of it, Dr. Akram Nadwi saying, or somebody is saying, well, I didn't pray the Fajr prayer this morning, and the student was saying, well, I don't want to go in his way or something. That's all part and parcel of Madrasa Life, but there's a wisdom there, and that is to train this human being to remember in the watchful hours of the night his claim, this claim of the superior upon himself. Whilst I was in the madrasa, we also performed the i'tikaf, seclusion, outside the month of Ramadan, and to learn of the beauty of isolation and learning to serve Allah. We also used to have assemblies just reciting Salat ala Nabi, or Durood Sharif, or blessings and salutations upon the Prophet. Obviously, dinner time was a special time where each student could be sussed out who is the best negotiator, who's going to sit where, and how he's going to acquire his. So I can see the smiling faces. Some of you have experienced all of this. But this, then further, there is a chain here, responsibility upon my shoulders to pass that knowledge on. That knowledge is acquired and passed on. There is a whole chain of people behind me, and my Sheikh will be talking about that, I gather, in the coming minutes as the program unfolds in front of us. I go back to the original scenario. What have you experienced in your life that is exclusive to you, and how would you communicate that? There will be lots of commonalities between different madrasas across the globe, but each student who enters a madrasa has an exclusive experience. I concede it is difficult to portray and relay that experience. However, Dr. Nadwi has done a wonderful job, and I commend the work. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.